Part 15, Chapter 37. What's the latest on the storm? Stan asked. Gil looked up, his long, melancholy face half in a green glow from the ready lights of his control panel. On the screen above him, data waves danced in long, wavering lines, the numbers changing with a rapidity that would defy the computational abilities of any but a synthetic man with a math coprocessor built into his positronic brain. Gil was such a man, and his computational abilities were enhanced by the rock steadiness of his mind, which was not subject to the neurotic claims of love, duty, family, or country. Yet, he was not completely emotionless. It had been found that intelligence of the highest order presupposes and is built upon certain fundamental emotional bases, of which the desire to survive and continue is the most fundamental of all. The designers of artificial men would have liked to have stopped there. But the uncertain nature of the materials they were using, in which minute differences in atomic structures eventually spelled big differences in output, as well as the inherent instability of colloidal structures, made this impossible. Gil was standard within his design parameters, but those parameters expressed only one part of him. The storm is abating, Gil said. There's been a 20% diminution in the last half hour. Given the conditions here, I think that's about the best we're going to get. In fact, it's apt to get a lot worse before it gets better. Then let's get on with it, Stan said. He turned to Norbert, the big robot alien, who still crouched patiently in a corner of the lander. Mac the dog, growing impatient, whined to be put down, and Norbert obliged. The dog investigated the corners of the little lander, and, finding nothing of interest, returned to curl up at Norbert's taloned feet. You ready, Norbert? Of course, Dr. Myakovsky. Being robotic, I am always ready. And Mac? He is a dog, so he is always ready too. Stan laughed and remarked to Julie, I wish now I'd had more time to talk with Norbert. His horrible appearance belies his keen intelligence. You are responsible for my appearance, Dr. Myakovsky, Norbert said. I think you're beautiful, Stan said. Don't you think so, Julie? I think you're both pretty cute, she said. Chapter 38. In the forward cabin of the lander, the 5 volunteer crew members were sitting as comfortably as they were able to in the cramped confines. Morrison, big and blonde, an Iowa farm boy, had unwrapped an energy bar and was nibbling at it. Beside him, Sky, fat and balding with a walrus mustache, decided to eat an energy bar of his own and fumbled it out of his pocket. Ika Nu, a flat-faced Burmese with skin a shade lighter than burned umber, was mumbling over the wooden beads of his Buddhist rosary. Styson, his long face as mournful as ever, was playing his harmonica, monotonously repeating one phrase over and over. And Larimer, a city boy from New York's South Bronx, was doing nothing at all except licking his dry lips and brushing his long, lank hair out of his eyes. They had been excited when they volunteered. It was a chance for some action after the confines of the ship. They'd heard stories about the aliens, of course, but none of them had seen one. They hadn't even been born at the time of the alien occupation of Earth. Aliens now seemed an exotic menace, a weird kind of big bug that would fall easily to their guns. Morrison was fiddling with his carbine. He decided to insert a new feed ramp. He stripped the receiver and replaced the ramp, then snapped the connector into place. The ramp toggled through a diagnostic code and then clicked into place. He shoved a magazine into the carbine, touched the bolt control, and cycled around into the firing chamber. The magazine's counter showed an even 100 anti-personnel rounds, ready to go. "Hey, farm boy," Sky said. "You planning to shoot something?" "If I get a chance," Morrison said. "I'm gonna bag me one of those aliens and bring home his horns." Ikanu looked up from his rosary. "Aliens got no horns." "Well, whatever they got, I want to bring a piece of it home. A piece of skull, maybe. Wouldn't that look good mounted over the mantle?" Styson said, "You better just hope one of those critters doesn't nail your hide up over the mantle." "What are you talking about?" Morrison asked. "Them creatures ain't civilized. They ain't got mantles." Just then, Stan's voice came over the loudspeaker. "You men, get ready to embark into a pod. Check your weapons." "Okay," Morrison said, getting to his feet. "Time we did ourselves a little hunting." The men were all on their feet, checking their weapons and talking excitedly. They were clumsy, some of them seeing modern weaponry for the first time. Morrison, who was their natural leader due to his size and self-confidence, though he was of the same rank as the rest of them, had to show Styson how to release the safeties. He was beginning to wonder if the guys would be all right, but he figured as long as they knew which end to point and what to pull, they'd be fine. What creature could stand up against military caseless ammunition? Chapter 39. The number 1 lander had 3 escape pods. These were used for close-up maneuvering in order not to jeopardize the lander itself by piloting it around poorly mapped ground features. This standard model pod was shaped like an enormous truck tire. Its circular form allowed for the miles of complex wiring that took up most of its interior and allowed it to ride the planet's electromagnetic currents with some success. Norbert fitted himself in, and Mac nestled up to his chest. "Comfortable?" Stan asked, peering in. "The question has no relevance for me," Norbert replied. "When your body is electronically operated, one posture is as good as another. But Mac is fine, Dr. Myakovsky." "Glad to hear it," Stan said. "Good luck, Norbert. I'll be sending down the 5 crew volunteers in a separate pod. This moment brings us to the whole point of this operation, getting you and Mac and the men to the surface of AR-32 near the alien hive. Have you got all the stuff you'll need? Did you remember to check the charge in the inhibitors?" "Of course, Dr. Myakovsky. They should give me enough time to do what I have to do." "Okay," Stan said. "Goodbye, Mac. You're a nice little dog. I hope to see you again one of these days." "Not likely, Doctor," said Norbert. Suddenly, Stan was furious. "Just get the hell out of here," he said, slamming the pod's hatch shut. "I don't need your comments." "Did you hear that, Julie?" "Take it easy, Stan," Julie said. "Norbert didn't mean anything. He only states facts. Anyway, what's the big deal?" Norbert's voice came over the radio. "I am ready for the descent, Dr. Myakovsky." Stan turned to Gil. "Cut the pod loose, and then get the volunteers into their own pod." Gil, seated at the control panel, turned a switch. The pod came loose from the landing platform with a soft, explosive sigh of power. It ejected straight into the air, dipped for a moment. Then its electromagnetic receptors came up to full, and the pod darted across the stormy landscape of AR-32 towards the distant hive.